Let's begin with Chancellor Young. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of the members of the committee. This is indeed an important undertaking. I listened very carefully to all that you had to say, and I find very little with which I disagree, although those who know me well know that I'll always find something to disagree with in what I'm involved in. Let me just say a bit about myself, just not to give you some indication as to why I'm so concerned about this and why I may have had some experiences that would be useful. I was got my associate in arts degree from San Bernardino Valley College, my BA from the University of California, Riverside. I was in the first class, the first student body president, and have stayed very closely associated with that institution over the years, and then my master's and PhD at UCLA. I then went off, when I was finishing my PhD, to Washington, D.C. as an American Political Science Association Congressional Fellow, and while I was finishing my PhD there, I was offered a job, offered a position as acting assistant professor of political science at the University of California, Davis, and a position as assistant to Clark Kerr when he was president of the university, and then the headquarters at Berkeley. Then, following that, went back to UCLA as an assistant professor of political science and assistant to the chancellor, and over the years became a professor of political science and public policy and chancellor, where I served for 29 years. Since then, I've been president of the University of Florida for 4 years, and then president of the Cutter Foundation in Cutter, and am currently serving as the chief executive officer of the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art, to bail it out and get it started on a new career. So I have had a long career in education in California and in the 3 public segments. When I came back to Berkeley in the early fall of 1959, it was just at following the time that the legislature had agreed to the creation of the commission which was to draw up a master plan, and had given it a year in which to do so. And I was asked to serve on the staff of that commission, along with the university representatives, Dean McHenry and Tom Holy. And I served in that capacity through the remainder of the work on the master plan, and through the time it was adopted, or portions of it were adopted, in the Donahoe Act of 1960. And I've watched the master plan develop over these many years. Let me just say a bit, although most of you know why the master plan was created, why the commission which put it together was created. The state was, in terms of higher education at that time, in what has been called really a state of chaos, and I think that's exactly what it was. We were facing a very great wave of increased enrollment that had come about for 3 reasons. One was just the increase in birth rate that followed the end of World War II. A second was the in-migration to California, and the third was the increasing desire on the part of young people to get university educations, and that created a huge wave of potential students for the university, and the state colleges and the community colleges and the independent colleges. And clearly the educational institutions in California at that time were not in a position to be able to meet that need. And the way that that was responded to was that the legislature was initiating a lot of legislation to create new colleges, to create new university campuses, to do a lot of things that still did not fit into any reasonable kind of pattern. And so Clark Kerr, who is certainly one of the great mentors I've had in my life, concluded that it was time to do something very systematic, and he went to Roy Simpson, who was then the superintendent of public instruction, and the two of them agreed that what was needed was to put together a commission which would be comprised not only of the representatives from the community colleges, the state colleges, and the University of California, but the independent colleges and universities as well. And there were representatives on that commission from all 4 of those segments and from the State Board of Education. And it was chaired by the then president of Occidental College, who did an absolutely admirable job. The problem was to try to create a system in which education could continue to be provided to the citizens of California on an affordable basis, with access, and on a high-quality basis. And the several things which the master plans strive to do, those who put it together, were in one way or another put into place. The goal was to put some of them into the Constitution. That did not happen. The goal was to put a number of others into legislation. That did happen to some extent. But some just became a custom, but have nevertheless stayed with us ever since. One was to create the differentiation of function, which was created and which has, I think, put the education system in California in very good stead. It is a system which does not exist in any substantial way in any other state in the country. And as I talked over the last 50 years to colleagues around this country in higher education, they believe that this is the envy of university presidents and chancellors around the country and indeed the world. Another was to create a differentiation in terms of admissions requirements, with all students who graduate from high school or who are 18 years of age being eligible to attend the community colleges, with 1/3 of the high school graduates more or less being eligible to attend the state college and university system, and with the top 12.5% of the graduates of California high schools being able to attend the University of California. That has essentially stayed in place with some modifications. It's been looked at over the several reviews that have been made and found to be very important. Access was assured, hopefully assured by what I've just mentioned with regard to admissions requirements, and also the transfer function, so that students were able to transfer from any one segment to the other segment. And that, again, is a very unusual arrangement, at least to the degree that exists in California, and has been, I think, a very substantial component of the master plan ever since.